Good evening, friends. I'm glad to see you again on this channel to talk about an incident that didn't cause any human casualties, fortunately. From time to time, we can relax about these things. So the human toll is zero. We're in China. This happened just yesterday. An Airbus A321 that was flying at cruising altitude 330 level 330 and was heading to Seoul, South Korea. At one point, smoke starts coming out of a luggage compartment, and then when he opens it, if you look at the videos, the images are quite impressive. A big fire had broken out, and actually it was probably a battery fire. So the batteries, unfortunately, I had read the statistics. I can't find the source again, but I'm giving you this roughly from memory. Today, on a cruise ship, there are up to 500 batteries, and I think that's a pretty low estimate. Why? Because we're surrounded by this. Take the average passenger, he has one or two cell phones, a laptop, many have e-cigarettes, he has a battery. Where is it? My battery? It's here. There are batteries. I'll tell you about them. There are batteries like this one to charge what I just mentioned. And so when you take your average passenger, some of them board with a kilo of lithium batteries on them. So obviously there can be times when these batteries go into thermal runaway and cause the damage we know about. On this channel, we've already had a Boeing 747 cargo plane crash. It killed the two pilots who were on board because of what was in the cargo. And it happens very, very often. If you look at aviation news, you'll see that companies regularly send batteries through cargo airlines without declaring them. Sometimes they make false declarations because they want to send lithium batteries, but they're afraid that either they'll be refused or they'll be overcharged or something else. And so they tend to say just about anything. And recently, just a few months ago in California at a FedEx sorting center, there was a big box that caught fire. Luckily, it didn't happen on the plane. The pilots could have died. And actually, the company was fined, I think, $60,000 by the FAA because there were batteries and it wasn't written on them that they were batteries. So now I'll tell you what happened next. On this Chinese flight, what happened was that the plane turned around, managed to land, and then the fire was brought under control by the crew. But the problem with batteries is that once they catch fire, you can't just stop them like that. It's very, very difficult because they generate a lot of heat. You need large amounts of water. But well, you're on board an airplane, but sometimes the fire extinguishers and all that don't do much, and it produces a lot of smoke. So the issue is, if you look at recent years, we have batteries like this one. And why would a battery like this catch fire? Let me tell you, there are several reasons. Many of these batteries are sold on Amazon, eBay, or elsewhere for a very low price. That often means it's not advanced technology and doesn't come from Cartier. These are batteries made in factories where they just cram in as many cells as possible. And there's a race to increase the capacity of these batteries. So if I increase the battery's capacity, it already weighs a lot. If I increase the capacity, I have to cram in as many cells as possible. But also because basically it's chemical energy, I have to increase the concentration of the chemicals inside the battery. The more concentrated it is, the more energy it gives, but the more concentrated it is, the higher the risk of runaway. And there's a risk of side reactions that can be triggered. So I don't have it here. I had a battery about this size, honestly, about this size, slightly bigger, maybe 5 or 6 millimeters bigger, 6 millimeters. It was capable. And it had a big cable. You could connect it to a car battery, a battery that wouldn't start anymore. You could start an engine with up to 3 liters of displacement. I myself started a Ford with a 1.8 liter engine, no problem. First turn of the key, it starts with just a battery of that size. So it's a small battery, but it has the size of a big one. So that's the first point. High energy increases the risk of runaway. Second issue, there are fireworks here. I hope you can't hear them, and I'll try to edit them out. It's not easy. So the second problem is that sometimes users are a little bit careless. For example, the other day I saw on a plane, there was a guy with a battery like this one. Look how many outputs it has. It has 4 All right, all four can be used for charging. And actually, there was a cable going to his tablet, and his wife, who was next to him, had a second cable going to her iPhone. So the thing is, the more you plug in, the more you're going to increase the amount of current. You're going to lower the total resistance at the output, you're going to increase the amount of current, and so you're going to increase the temperature of the battery with a risk that it could catch fire. That's the second problem. But there's a third one too. Let me tell you, the other day I was on a plane, I was traveling, and suddenly my phone became really hot. I mean, really hot. And actually, what I had to do, open the air vents above my head. I left the phone there a long time to let it cool down. After turning it off, I put it under the air because just turning it off usually isn't enough for me. And it's a metal iPhone. So what's happening? Why? On airplanes, cell phones, computers, batteries, everything electronic tends to operate at a higher temperature, right? So potentially encouraging thermal runaway. Here's the story. When a plane is at its cruising altitude, like this Chinese plane, it was at flight level 330. Well, outside the pressure is very low. We're going to pressurize the plane to about 3/4 of an atmosphere. So we're going to remove about 25%. Why do we remove 25%? It's so we don't overload the airframe, because the plane is flying in an area where the air is relatively thin. We couldn't survive there. But we also can't pressurize it to the point where we have the same pressure as on the ground, because that creates a difference, a pressure differential through the metal of the plane, which is very high. So what do? We pressurize to about 3/4 of an atmosphere. So we remove 25% of the pressure compared to the ground. So there's less pressure. Secondly, the air is dry on a plane. It's much drier than on the ground. So what's going to happen? With all that, we're going to lose thermal conductivity. That means we're going to lose cooling capacity. When you take a phone, for example, or even some small laptops that rely on passive cooling, that means they have metal inside. When you open an iPhone, you'll see that they have quite a bit of metal. The purpose is there are heat dissipation rails whose job is to dissipate heat. Yes, but to dissipate heat, you need to have air around that is able to take that heat. If you have less on a plane, it's 23 or 24 degrees. Plus the air is thinner. Well, thinner, you know what I mean. You have less, 25%, you have it. It's dry. Your cooling level will never be the same as on the ground. It will be extremely low. So what's going to happen? All things being equal, your device will run hotter than on the ground, and it will tend toward thermal runaway. Let me remind you of a case here on this channel, the case of the Greek Boeing 737 that had taken off. And it was never pressurized, and the pilots gradually lost consciousness. Why? Because the air gradually thinned out in the cabin and the plane eventually crashed. If you watch the video, there's an alarm when he's the pilot during the climb, and they didn't know how to interpret it because they were probably already starting to get mentally confused due to the depressurization. What was the alarm? Was it avionics overheating? Why? Because in this plane, well, you have a lot of electronics, right? Computers that will create the mobile navigation maps. They'll create the environment, flight parameters, all of that. And all of that is placed in a kind of small data center, and it's cooled. So each of these devices has fans inside. So when the plane was climbing, the air pressure was dropping outside and also inside because it wasn't pressurized. The fans spun faster to compensate for the lack of air. And after a while, what happened? Well, the fans were at 100% and the system started to overheat. The pilots received the alarm but couldn't interpret it. So you see that in a plane, things tend to heat up pretty easily. So inevitably, incidents continue to happen. At Emirates recently, they banned batteries. But be careful, they didn't ban the transport of batteries. They banned transporting overly powerful batteries, but they allow you to take batteries with you, just not use them during the flight. So on the seats, normally they have USB outlets. But still, despite everything, there's still a risk. I'm not really in favor of this ban. Do you know why? Because I'm telling you the way it's worded. The reason is that people, they're all twisted. You know how it is. If they're not allowed to use their batteries during the flight, the risk is that they'll break the rules anyway. And then take the phone, put it in the backpack or in a jacket pocket and plug it into the battery. Even though seats have USB ports, they sometimes don't work. So what could happen? Instead of having batteries that are outside, right? Now we have batteries that are hidden at the bottom of a bag, and then with more risks, right, of overheating and thermal runaway once again. As we move forward, we are heading toward this inextricable problem of batteries and electronic devices around us. Emirates has banned them. Gradually, I think that day by day, week by week, we will see companies experiencing incidents and increasingly banning batteries. But that doesn't completely solve the problem because, look, this one, we can totally ban it, okay? But you won't ban people from bringing their phones, right? Knowing that we're in a time when people are told, download the airline's app to check in, to bring your boarding pass, etc. So you're not banning phones or stopping travelers who often travel for work or other reasons from taking their laptops. It has larger batteries. Some laptops can last 12 hours, making this one seem insignificant. When you open it, you see the mega battery. It's much more powerful and bigger than what I'm holding in my hand. So let me give you a simple example. I traveled once with a laptop, and since I do video editing, sometimes on the go when I'm traveling, well, my laptop is a gaming laptop. I don't play games, I don't have time in this life to play, but I got a gaming laptop because it has a powerful graphics card which allows me to use Photoshop and do video editing. Well, imagine that at one point I'm at the airport, I feel a burning sensation in my back, I stop, I open my backpack and I realize what the computer started up on its own. I had turned it off, I had closed it before leaving. Well, it's in my backpack and the backpack was really stuffed and it didn't have any space. Well, it's starting up. And when I take it out, I see that it was probably just starting, that I had left the house 2 or 3 hours earlier, that it was running. It was as hot as an iron and it was blowing at full blast. So I took it out, I put it down and I left it and I turned it off. I left it for a long time to cool down. I took it with me on the plane, holding it in my hand. You know what I mean? There's this problem that isn't easily fixed, actually, but maybe there's an option. I had the idea the other day, but no, you can't do it alone. If you want, contact me. I'll give you the WhatsApp number. If you have the means to finance this or something else, contact me, and then maybe we can work on it. Look, imagine a battery like this one, but designed specifically for aviation. And it has a logo, for example, Flight Safe or something like that, and it will be designed to really be able to fly. So it's not enough to just make it yourself. You also have to convince the regulator. You must also assure airlines that the battery is tested, verified, and won't explode, that it contains internal protection systems and quality circuits. And all that makes it a battery that's safe to be carried on board, knowing that there is no battery on Earth that is completely safe. Remember, the Boeing 787, it was its own batteries that exploded when it was launched. So batteries made to go into a plane, right? Well, that's it. But what we can do is reduce the risk, limit it, nothing more. There you go, my friends. So I don't see an easy solution here. Unfortunately, we can reduce the issue, ban those batteries, but in the end, there is no simple solution. Here's a tip. When traveling, avoid bringing mega batteries or batteries. It's better to just take two that aren't very powerful instead of trying to take the heaviest, most condensed, and most powerful one. That's already something. Don't use them to charge multiple devices at the same time. Use only one device at a time, no more. Charge them outside, not in a backpack. Don't mishandle, drop, or plug them in improperly. Use quality cables, not bad ones. Don't charge, try to honestly just look. Often, whenever possible, I charge during the layover. I don't charge before boarding the plane, and if I do charge, I'll maybe charge for about 15 or 20 minutes. My goal isn't to push the phone up to 100%. It's just, for example, if I see it's at 25% and it might let me down at some point. I plug it in and stop charging at 55% or 60%. My goal isn't to keep it plugged in, just to reduce usage time. Honestly, these just help lower the risks. There's no absolute guarantee behind it. In any case, there's never an absolute guarantee. Thank you for watching this video up to this point. The other videos that are about non-current cases are on Patreon. There are, I believe, 4 of them today. I'm preparing a 5th one, and those videos will never come to YouTube. So, if you want to support this channel and access these exclusive videos, I invite you to subscribe on Patreon. Any Patreon subscription, regardless of amount, gives access to all videos. I've also done exclusive live streams for Patreon supporters. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video soon. Subtitles by ST.